mean, I know you say it doesn't matter, but I think it does matter. I mean, he can be deputy AG for forever, but it does matter politically, and it does matter for our country, Alex. It matters whether Republicans are willing to hold the very people that they nominate to the standards that they have given for them, which Thom Tillis laid out pretty clearly during that initial confirmation hearing.
I feel like every time we ask ourselves whether Republicans will do the right thing, it's like Lucy with the football. We keep going after it, Katie, and yet the football keeps disappearing.
But we have to ask it. We can't avoid it. We have to ask it.
Of course we do. Of course we do. And there is every reason to continue to put pressure on Senate Republicans, especially outgoing Republicans who literally have no skin in the game, right? Other than, I guess, wanting lucrative lobbying contracts and making sure they have access to the White House in their post-Senate careers, right? But morally and ethically, they have the only responsibilities they have are to the American people and to the Constitution. And this one is pretty clear cut. If Thom Tillis is genuinely concerned about people in the administration and specifically the deputy AG and the AG giving special treatment to January 6 offenders and rioters, Todd Blanche is doing just that. He was the mastermind of the $1.8 billion slush fund, which was set up specifically to pay out Trump loyalists who had violently stormed the Capitol. There's not a lot of wiggle room there. There's not a lot of gray area. But I trust Jake Sherman. And if Jake Sherman is saying that Thom Tillis has, settled the accounts as far as Todd Blanche and January 6th, then I'm not exactly sure what's left. I would expect that he's going to get at least through the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, I mean, I trust Jake as well. I have him on. I'd have him on every day, every moment of every day if I had the opportunity to do so. But I know he has another day job. But I just wonder, I mean, listen to what you're reporting at Punchbowl. Laura Weiss is reporting at Punchbowl, Jake. Senator Collins met with Todd Blanche on his AG nomination this morning. She says they had an extensive discussion on the anti-weaponization fund, and Blanche assured her with no equivocation at all that he won't pursue it. All right. I mean, it has like real whiffs of Collins. I'm very disappointed, but I'm okay now. Past statements. It might not matter in the confirmation process. He might get confirmed because the Republicans do always fold. But is this sort of thing going to come up in Collins's reelection campaign? Is this the sort of thing that makes Graham Plattner stronger against somebody like her, even with all of the problems that Graham Plattner has? Does it allow voters to look past all of his drama and to say, well, at least he's somebody who might stand up to what's going on and not pretend to stand up as Collins has? Jake?
Yeah, I mean, listen, nominations are, the line would be from Plattner would be that, Susan Collins has voted for somebody who is giving comfort to, who wants to pay off or has suggested to pay off people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. That's a somewhat powerful message, I assume. I mean, that is something that any candidate can use against a Republican who votes for Todd Blanche for AG. So I don't know that it definitively helps him. It certainly doesn't hurt. Listen, if I were one of these Republicans, I would be looking for the greatest amount of distance that I could put between myself and Donald Trump. If you're running in a competitive state, the president is at 39%, Katie. He is at his lowest point on approval rating in his time in office. I don't understand why you would be siding with him at this point. You should be looking for the maximal amount of space that you could get with this president, because that suits your political benefit, especially after a primary. So, I mean, just from a pure politics point of view, not even talking about Blanche specifically, there is no reason for a lot of these folks to be lining up with Trump right now. I don't know how it suits them.
So, I mean, I want to get to Gavin Newsom and some other reporting that Carol has, but I'm going to hang on this for a moment with you, Alex. Why would they not distance themselves from the president when they are past a primary and they're up for a general election, one that would put them in office for another 6 years?
To try and explore the mind of an outgoing Republican incumbent to go take a trip to the Twilight Zone, Katie, my best guess would be, first of all, I think that John Thune is going to allow some members to vote against Todd Blanche's confirmation, just like he did on key votes, basically swing state, vulnerable Republicans, whether it's Susan Collins or others, so that they can say they didn't vote to confirm him, which is, the coward's way out, knowing full well that he'll get confirmation more broadly. But secondly, I would say, I think they are genuinely afraid of Trump's wrath, even if they're leaving office. They don't want the headache of him targeting them and their families. They don't want to deal with the internet onslaught. They want to make sure that they have some kind of career after they leave the Senate. They want to make money. And to do that, they need to stay in the good graces of the GOP. And Trump is the king. So to that end, I think they're really worried about what their reputation is like after they leave. They want to do just enough to say they did the right thing, but they don't actually want to have to cross that threshold. So if they're not going to vote for Todd Blanche, then they should at least get him to put down in writing formally that there will be no anti-weaponization fund inside the DOJ.
Also, try to push back on this sweetheart tax deal, this audit deal that he's given Donald Trump, not being audited for the past or for the present, neither him nor his family or his company, which is wild. Let's talk about Gavin Newsom. He's fighting back. He wants to FOIA all of the top officials that might have had a hand in this, including Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, and some others. What might he get out of those records?
I don't think he's going to get anything, but the very asking of it is sort of masterful from a legal perspective, because one of the bases on which the Department of Justice can withhold records from Gavin Newsom is to say that they are subject to what's called the law enforcement exception under FOIA. If they do that, that's sort of proof positive for Gavin Newsom that the investigation that he believes is happening is in fact happening to the extent he thinks it's happening. Because again, Kitty, he's asked for communications not only involving the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and his predecessor, Pam Bondi, but also involving people at the White House. And so if he doesn't get them and the exception they cite is law enforcement, then Gavin Newsom gets to wave it around at a press conference and say, see, I told you, they are investigating me and they are doing it for political purposes.
Carol, do you have anything to add on the opening of an investigation into Gavin Newsom's wife from the perspective of folks at DOJ?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes, our sources who are serious people and look at the facts and evidence in a case seriously say that there is a pretty significant case that's being pursued and has been pursued for months, probably starting sometime in early 2025, but really ratcheting up in recent months, that looks at Jennifer Seibel Newsom, Gavin Newsom's wife, and her tax filings, in particular her use, possible personal use of nonprofit funds. That is the information they're sifting through. I'm not alleging any wrongdoing. I'm just saying that people who make cases for a living and do it carefully and thoroughly and judiciously say that this case appears to be a pretty significant one.
Do we know how it came to be, whether it was the Justice Department just deciding to look into Gavin Newsom and those around him, or if it was a more organic occurrence? Carol?
Absolutely critical question, and the one that I'm trying to answer right now, which perhaps the FOIA could help with if they aren't able to cite an ongoing case, which of course they will cite an ongoing case to avoid answering this FOIA. We need to know the timeline. Did the evidence involving Gavin Newsom's wife, which sources are citing to me now, did that come to them in the course of their investigation, say, of Gavin Newsom's chief of staff or other staff? In other words, did they start with evidence of potential wrongdoing, or did they start with a target list and find evidence of potential wrongdoing? That's the critical question. We don't know the answer to that yet. All we do know is the evidence that's been amassed to date, and there have been numerous interviews, tons of records gathered, is considered compelling by career professionals.
And let me ask you, Carol, while I have you, about Kash Patel. This morning, he posted on X about a threat to the UFC event on Sunday. He said this: on June 10th, FBI and our law enforcement partners became aware of a potential threat to the UFC America 250 event in Washington involving individuals outside of the National Capital Region. And thanks to the rapid action of this FBI, our partners, and the Department of Justice in a multi-state operation, multiple individuals are now in custody, and allegedly planned attacks were stopped cold. What else do you have on this?
So Kash Patel has a history. The FBI director has a trend, if you will, Katie, of announcing things a little prematurely on social media and on X. And this is, according to our sources, another example. Kash Patel made this public posting about this investigation when it was both sealed in court documents, meaning not open to the public, and also considered an ongoing probe where multiple suspects had not been yet arrested and taken into custody. This worried the Secret Service significantly. The Secret Service began this investigation and, of course, was joining with the FBI, partnering with the FBI on this probe, and figured out from actually a relative of one of the suspects in Cincinnati, I'm told by a source, that a person, this relative, was plotting something. And that's how this whole investigation began. But Patel's announcement on Tuesday morning, this morning, struck Secret Service officials cold. They could not believe that the FBI director chose to discuss an ongoing case that all of the partners on this investigation had decided to keep mum about it because it's sealed, legally sealed in court, or was until sometime today, and also that it was ongoing with suspects still sort of in the wind, if you will.